Hello guys, it is Mystic Magic, and today I'm back with another Commander deck review, and today I'm doing Partner Commander of Kydele, chosen of Krufix, and Thrasios Triton Hero. Now, you guys guessed it, this is a combo deck that revolves around drawing cards and creating infinite mana. So I'll go over the first commander, Kydele. Kydele is a 2/3 for 4, and she taps for one colorless to your mana pool for each card that you've drawn this turn. So this works very well. If you've drawn a bunch of cards, you can tap this for a whole bunch of mana and just cast big flashy spells, do whatever you want. Now Thrasios is a 2 mana 1/3, and 4 colorless mana to scry 1, then reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, otherwise draw a card. And these commanders also both have partner. Now the way this deck works is this combos with Kydele for putting all the mana you've made from her into Thrasios Triton Hero. So you create infinite mana with Kydele and then draw your entire deck with Thrasios. I'll get into how you do that later, but for now let's get into the deck. I've divided it up into the usual categories: land, instants and sorceries, enchantments, creatures, and then a couple planeswalkers over there. Let's get right in. So for the lands, we just have your normal Simic dual lands. You have Breeding Pool, Hinterland Harbor, Botanical Sanctum, Yavimaya Coast, Temple of Mystery, Flooded Grove, Lumbering Falls, Simic Growth Chamber, Hallamur Depths. Hallamur Depths is just a good land to put in any blue deck. Helps you manipulate the top of your library. It is almost a ponder. Command Tower, Ancient Tomb for that extra colorless, Temple of the False God, Evolving Wilds, Reliquary Tower, because in a draw card deck, of course, as well as any other deck, you would like to have no maximum hand size. And then we have some forests, obviously, and some islands. And now we have the instants and sorceries. We have Brainstorm, because this is essentially 1 mana to draw 3 cards. This automatically lets Kydele tap for 4, because you've drawn your 1 card for a turn, and then the other 3. You do have to put 2 back, but that's not really of any matter in this deck. Cyclonic Rift, your normal blue board wipe. Mystical Tutor, I usually use this to search up Fabricate, to search up an artifact that I may need. I'll get into that later. Or I can use this to search up Cyclonic Rift, or a wheel, or a draw card spell, anything like that. Tolarian Winds. It's an instant, discard your hand, then draw that many cards. This is essentially a, what is it called? Wheel of Fortune or Windfall, just for you. It's an instant, discard your hand, then draw that many cards. It helps you draw a whole bunch of cards, especially if you have a lot of cards already in your hand. Dramatic Reversal, untap all non-land permanents you control. This lets you untap Kydele just to use her again. Frantic Search, it's an instant, draw 2 cards and discard 2 cards, untap up to 3 lands. This is essentially a free Faithless Looting at instant speed. It just lets you draw cards in a turn while also being able to do some other things. Pull from Tomorrow. This deck has a lot of X draw card spells, because A, you can use the mana from Kydele to pump it into these, and B, this also does power up Kydele, so she makes more mana. Also, if you have infinite mana, you can draw your entire deck with these instead, if you don't want to use Thrasios. Stroke of Genius, just another X draw card spell. Blue Sun Zenith, it also shuffles itself into its owner's library. Oh, and a fun thing you can do with this, if you have infinite mana, you can make your opponent deck themselves and win that way with one of these, because it's target player. And of course, the counter spells. We have, well, you guessed it, just normal counterspell. Plasm Capture, because this is essentially a mana drain for 4 that lets you add colored mana. It's actually pretty nice. Swan Song. Summary Dismissal, because this actually does get rid of spells that can't be countered because it exiles all other spells. Commit to Memory, The first half of this is a counter spell that tucks it second from the top, but Memory is actually a wheel for 7. Each player shuffles his or her hand and graveyard into his or her library, then draws 7 cards. Arcane Denial, Void Slime, because this is actually a Simic Disallow. Overwhelming Denial, because if you want to get rid of something and you don't want to start a counterspell war, this will immediately end it because it cannot be countered. Normal Mana Drain. And then Windfall, just to wheel everyone's hands. Each player discards his or her hand, then draws cards equal to the greatest number of cards a player discarded this way. If you do have a lot of cards in your hand, it will let your opponents draw a lot of cards, but it does not really any matter because if you're playing this, you're usually going to try to win. Recurring Insight, draw cards equal to the number of cards in target opponent's hand, with Rebound. So if an opponent is kind of rivaling you in that card draw, you can just draw however many cards they have, and it has Rebound, so you can do it again on the next turn. Mind Spring, just another X draw card spell. Praetor's Council. Praetor's Council is such a good card because it returns all cards from your graveyard to your hand, and then you exile it and you have no maximum hand size for the rest of the game. So not only does it give you no max hand size, but if someone's wheeled, or if you've wheeled even, you can get all of those cards back and ready for use again. Cultivate, just your normal mana ramp. Time Reversal, because it is a wheel that also shuffles your graveyard in. Fabricate. This searches your library for an artifact card, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle. I will tell you guys why this is useful later. This is for finding combo pieces. River's Rebuke, because this is basically just a Cyclonic Rift for one player. If one player is getting you out of hand, you can just use this on them, screw them over. Urban Evolution. I love this card a whole lot because it's a 5-mana sorcery to draw 3 cards and play an additional land. This just helps you out a lot. It gets Kydele to that maximum potency where she taps for 4 mana, where she can combo off at that, and you can play an additional land. Kodama's Reach, again just some ramp. Ponder, 1 mana to look at the top 3, put them back in any order, or shuffle and then draw a card. Of course, Enter the Infinite to draw your entire deck. Now we'll get into the artifacts and enchantments. First we have Cast Through Time. Instants and sorcery spells you control have Rebound. So basically, if you play them, you get to play them again at the beginning of your next upkeep. So any draw card spells like Urban Evolution, something like that, you get to do it all twice. Training Grounds, because this reduces the activated ability of Thrasios by 2. Mystic Remora, so when your opponents play some non-creature spells, you can also get some cards out of that. Dictate of Kruphix, to make everyone happy with you and to draw you an additional card. Rites of Flourishing does almost the same thing, except it also lets everyone play an additional land. Thought Reflection, if you would draw a card, instead draw 2 cards. This is a really, really good card in the deck because it just doubles all the cards you draw and just makes everything that much easier. Allhammeret's Archive does the same thing with the added life gain doubling. It's not really useful in this deck, maybe 1 card that benefits off of it, but it's still very good. Now, Sword of the Parents. This is one of the main combo pieces in this deck. It is we don't need to read that other text because it's not very relevant. It is 3 tap or untap equipped creature. So if this is equipped to Kydele and she taps for 4 mana, this creates infinite colorless mana, which you can use to draw your entire deck with Thrasios or whatever you want. Simic Signet, just some Simic mana ramp. Paradox Engine. Whenever you cast a spell, untap all non-land permanents you control. This is not an infinite combo, but it very much is a good card in this deck because you can chain a whole bunch of spells together. Mycosynflatus is a very crucial piece in this deck because if you have infinite colorless mana and your deck in your hand, most of the stuff in here is colored. So the bottom ability of Mycosynth Lattice is players may spend mana as though it were any color. This just unlocks the rest of your deck and lets you spend all that colorless mana to play whatever you want. Gilded Lotus, just some mana ramp. Venser's Journal, it gives you no maximum hand size, and at the beginning of your upkeep, you gain 1 life for each card in your hand. This can help you get back into the game with life, and also gives you no maximum hand size, so you don't have to move to discard. Umbral Mantle is another thing like Sword of the Perins. It lets a creature untap, and as an added bonus, if you do this, Kydele will have infinite power. Soul Ring, of course. Howling Mine, at the beginning of each player's draw step. If Howling Mine is untapped, that player draws an additional card. Spellbook for no maximum hand size. And a Lightning Greaves just to protect your commander, because Kydele in games is often a pretty big threat on the table. People will remove her a lot, and if you have this, it just makes it that much harder. Alright, and the next category I have is the creatures. First we have Solemn Simulacrum. Just your commander staple. Gets you a land, draws you a card. Magus of the Candelabra. This is a good card to have because you can pump your colorless mana into it to untap X target lands, which will be like swamps, or I'm sorry, not swamps, islands and forests. Just help you get colored mana. Teferi, Mage of Zhalfir. This basically just shuts down counter spells and makes it so that you can do whatever you want. Also, this enables for you to combo off at instant speed because creature cards you own that aren't on the battlefield have flash. Jin-Gitaxias Core Augur. At the beginning of your end step, you draw 7 cards, and each opponent's maximum hand size is reduced by 7. Laboratory Maniac. This enables you to win by drawing your entire deck, just if you would draw a card while your library has no cards in it. Instead, you win the game. Kruphix, God of Horizons. He gives you no maximum hand size, and he makes it so any unused mana just turns into colorless mana and stays. Edric, Spymaster of Trust. This is one of those cards that encourages players to attack people other than yourself, because whenever a creature deals combat damage to one of your opponents, its controller may draw a card. So if they hit you, they won't draw any cards, but if they hit your opponents, they will draw cards. This is just a really good politic card and just incentivizes your opponents to stay away from you. Jace's Archivist. This is just a 2/2 for 3 that is a wheel on a stick. Prime Speaker Vannifar. Prime Speaker Vannifar enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the greatest power among other creatures you control. When Prime Speaker Vannifar enters the battlefield, draw cards equal to its power. So if you have another card like Toothy, like for instance, when you draw a card, put a +1/+1 counter on him, Toothy will get really big really fast, and then you play Prime Speaker Zagana and draw a whole bunch of cards and benefit off of Toothy's power, or another creature like that. Chasm Skulker is also another one of those cards where whenever you draw a card, you put a +1/+1 counter on it, and when it dies you create X 1/1 blue squid creatures with Island Walk, where X is the number of counters on it. You can actually beat people to death with cards like Toothy and Prime Speaker Vannifar. I'm sorry, Toothy and Chasm Skulker, just because of how big they get. Trophy Mage, because this searches for Umbral Mantle, just one of the combo pieces. Psychosis Crawler. This is also another win condition, because if you draw your entire deck with this on the battlefield, this can kill all of your opponents, provided you have plenty of cards in your deck, of course. Biomancer's Familiar. This is just another version of Training Grounds. It reduces Thrasios' ability. Sakura Tribe Elder, to get you more mana onto the battlefield, just ramp you up. Overbeing of Myth. Overbeing of Myth's power and toughness are equal to the number of cards in your hand. This again can get very, very big. And as an added bonus, you draw an additional card on your draw step. And lastly, we have Tishana Voice of Thunder. Tishana Voice of Thunder's power and toughness are equal to the number of cards in your hand. This can also get very, very big. It gives you no maximum hand size as well, and when it enters the battlefield, you draw a card for each creature you control. So that's a very, very nice utility card. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing a lot of names. I'm actually recording this video pretty late at night. I'm just really, really tired. Didn't have too much time during the day. I was actually at my game store playing some Commander and Standard. So, sorry about that. And lastly, we just have a couple Planeswalkers. We have Jace Beleren, or Party Jace, just to get that extra card draw. We have Kiora, Master of the Depths, mostly just for her +1, which is untap up to 1 target creature and 1 target land. I usually just use this to untap Kydele just to get another use out of her. Alright, and that should be it for the deck. Again, the link for this deck should be in the description of the video. And as usual, if you like what you see, please just subscribe, like the video, and share it. Mostly, just share it to anyone who you think would like my content. Alright, that should be it for me. Have a good one, guys. This has been Mystic Magic.